So I want to show you some quick and easy exercises that you can do every day to increase the bone mineral density in the hip, which is one of the most common areas of fracture. So the first thing that you want to do, as we've been talking about, is to stand with your feet hip width apart and keeping your hip bone over your ankle bone. A lot of times people will hang on their hips like this, and so you want to back your hips up, and that's going to stimulate that bone density. Once you are in that position, then you can practice shifting your weight from left to right, keeping the hips back, okay? So you don't want to slump forward and go side to side. You want to back your hip joint up so it falls over that ankle, and then just slowly shift your weight to one foot and then to the other foot. As you get more practice with this, you can start to lift one foot up and just balance here. You can hold on to something, so it doesn't have to be a balance exercise, but you're going to build density in that hip bone as well as muscle mass in your gluteus medius. If you've had a hip replacement before, I wouldn't recommend bringing the whole foot off the floor. I would just keep both feet on the ground. Another good exercise is the monster walk. So you're going to keep your knees straight and your feet hip width apart. So notice that I'm going wide to hip width, wide to hip width. I'm not going wide to narrow, wide. You don't want to do that. You want to go wide hip width, wide hip width, wide hip width. And you'll start to feel this work being done in your gluteus medius. Remember that you want to keep your hips back as you're doing that. So don't let your hips come forward. Back your bottom up. It's going to feel like you're pitching forward. That's okay. And the really important thing to notice with this exercise is that I'm keeping my knees straight, my feet are hip width apart, and they're pointing straight ahead. There's going to be a tendency to want to turn your foot out to make it a little bit easier and to work different muscle groups. Make sure the tops of your feet are pointing straight ahead. It may feel a little bit pigeon-toed, so don't look at where your toes are pointing. Look at where the bones on the top of your feet are, and they should be pointing straight ahead like arrows or like on a train track. Okay? So I'm just going side to side until I start to fatigue my hip muscles. I'm keeping my knees straight. I'm landing on my whole foot. Okay? Don't just land on the toes. Get that heel down as well. Back your hips up, keep your knees straight, and you're just going to go from side to side until you start to feel that in your legs. Okay, so just to review, the most important thing is going to be to back your hips up. Second, you can balance on one leg or just go in place side to side, especially if you have a hip replacement already. And you can just shift your weight gently from one foot to another. And then the last thing is going to be the zombie walk, the monster walk, and that's where you don't move. You bend your knees. You do not bend your knees. You keep everything nice and straight, and you side bend. So I cannot emphasize enough that the most important thing is going to be to change your footwear and shift your posture so that your weight's back on your heels and your hip bone is over your ankle. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Thanks so much. Have a great day.